Ready?
Are you going to campaign? Lots of that. And these are all.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, January 21st, 2025, 6:30 p.m. This is the City of Franklin Common Council meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please catch the roll call?
Mayor Nelson,
Here.
Alderman Pecorelli,
Here.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Here.
Alderman Hassan,
Here.
Alderwoman Day.
Here.
Alderman Barber.
Here.
Alderman Craig.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next up is citizen comment period. Anybody wishing to speak at this time, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. 3 minutes, I will be the timekeeper. It is now open. Anybody wishing to speak? Going once? Twice? Closed citizen comment period. Moving on to approval of the minutes, regular common council meeting minutes of January 7th,
Move to approve.
2025. That's an error there, 2025. We have a first and a second
As amended.
as amended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Who was the first on that?
I was.
Mr. Barber.
Mike? Who was the second?
Aye.
Okay, Yusuf? Because she's going to ask that question when she returns.
Oh.
I'm anticipating questions. E, organizational mayoral appointments. We've got two. Hopefully you don't have to take separate action, so I'll combine them as one. Melissa Ferguson, 7612 South 70th Street, Alderman of D5, Personnel Committee, 3-year unexpired term, expiring April 30th of 2026. Rebecca Everhart, 8607 South Deerwood Lane, Alderman D6, Board of Health, 2-year unexpired term, expiring 4/30 of 2026. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to confirm.
Second.
First to confirm, seconded by Yusuf. We will slowly do a roll call on this. This is item E as in Edward. If you could just do a roll call, please, on the confirmation of these two individuals to boards and commissions.
Alderman Pecorelli,
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
6 ayes on those, motion carries. Madam Clerk, just so you know, under C as in Charles, approval of the minutes, they were, Mr. Alderman Barber was the first, and Alderman Hassan was the second, and it was unanimous. G1. In order to amend the municipal code to change the sales start time of the Labor Day Fair, Monday at St. Martin's Fair Day, the first Monday, of the September, not the Sunday day, but Monday.
Motion to adopt.
I will second.
So there's a first and a second. Further discussion, I'll start. So, if there's any. So we've gotten that fair, and Rosie Bosch is in the back row hiding, so I'm gonna call her out. So it was her grandmother that was part of the group that, helped steal it from Hill's Corners in 1958. And we have had it ever since. And her grandmother was one of the first founding Fair Commission members. And I was, when her grandmother was done, I had the honor of taking over that open seat 18 years ago, probably, a long time ago. So this makes perfect sense. We've got a first and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thanks,
Thank you, Rosie, for everything you do. G2, a resolution authorizing certain officials to execute a service sanitation portable restroom facilities agreement for the 2025 St. Martin's Fair with Service Sanitation of Wisconsin, Inc.
Motion to approve. Or to adopt resolution.
We've got a first and a seconded by Alderwoman Day. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Request council approval of an MOU between the Franklin Police Department and the Franklin School District, which places a second school resource officer, SRO, into the Franklin Public Schools beginning in the 2025-2026 school year. We're gonna have some discussion on this. Chief, if you would come up. Bringing the big guns, Ireland, oh boy. So, Captain Ireland, Chief, good evening and welcome. Just do a quick test to make sure your microphones are working.
Can you hear me? All right.
Perfect,
Test.
excellent. All right, first questions up will be Alderwoman Eichman. I'll go last.
Thank you. Thank you for both being here this evening. My first question is, in incorporating a second SRO, what will be the placement of the first SRO and then the second? I have some thoughts of where they may be, but if you could explain that to us, please.
Sure. Currently, since approximately February of 23, the existing school resource officer has divided her time up equally amongst the middle school and high school. While there's benefits to that, because previously the SRO was stationed at the high school solely and would respond as needed to the middle school. So there's obviously benefits to being in both schools, but you're less effective in both as well, unfortunately. That's why we're asking for a second. So to answer your question, there will be one stationed at the high school, one at the middle school, and then we'll have to determine how the grade schools will be covered, but the draw for service is obviously far less at a grade school or elementary school. So
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that, Yield.
Alderwoman Day.
Thank you. And thank you, Chief, for answering the questions I had prior to the meeting. I had one other thing that came up, and obviously you may not be able to answer this. It's a little bit more towards the school district portion of this, but sort of the same question that I asked you as far as moving forward after this year. So we're using some unstaffed budget to help alleviate the 30% that the city is covering for this.
Correct.
And the school district moving forward, do they have room in their budget long-term for that after this year? Or do we know their side of things? Because obviously, us covering 30% is probably a little bit easier to find and squirrel away versus 70% on their side. So I don't know if you have any concerns about that or know anything about their budget moving forward.
I can tell you right now, obviously, someone had to get this ball rolling first. So I wanted to get this MOU approved. The 70% that the school district has to come up with, that's in their proposed budget, not approved yet.
Sure.
So obviously, if they don't approve it for this year, we would probably fall back on the previous MOU, which we've had in place for years. The fundamental difference between that MOU and this one is literally going from one SRO to two. So if for some reason, and I find it unlikely, that they wouldn't get that 70% approved this year, that we would just fall back on the previous. But as far as future years, that's not a conversation I've had. But I know there's strong support for the SRO, both within the city and school districts. So I anticipate that that's something that they've addressed. But I don't have an answer for you concrete.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Alderman Craig.
One item that I just want to have some clarification on, with 5 elementary schools for the district, and under item C for duties of the SRO, subsection 3, is the drug awareness. Would these 2 SROs be the sole DARE officers for the entire district, or would that be something that you would draw from your other staff for that?
That's a fair question. However, the DARE program, we've discontinued involvement in that several years back. So we are not currently involved in that.
Okay.
And there's been no discussion to bring it back at this point. But simple answer is we don't have DARE right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Back to Alderwoman Eichman.
Thank you. One more thing I just wanted to add. I'm not sure about the other alders up here, but I have taken some input from parents that have children at the middle school when I was out collecting signatures and so forth. So I feel from some of the stories I've been hearing at the middle school, and we can all remember being at middle school back in the day, Mayor and I walking the halls of Forest Park. I feel just from the feedback from the parents that I've spoken to well before this was even on the agenda that it's a need within the city, and I think will really help out the middle schools and their staff as well. Thank you.
So I support the SRO in theory. We need it. There's no question we need it. And the middle schoolers, from my personal experience, have been worse than the high schoolers in many ways. And with the bullying and everything else that we need to address, you try to curb behavior with, talking and education, but then there has to be accountability through whether it's citing, time off of school, you've got to bring in all sorts of things that take a lot of time, and nothing is quick with these calls because you're dealing with juveniles. I would like to see us, and this is how you view it, is it a true 70-30 where you believe that this second, I'm not looking to put you in a spot, but I kind of am, looking at this 70% is going to be in the school and 30% could actually be out patrolling the streets of Franklin? Because if it's not, which I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to be that demanding. I think it's going to be, call volume is going to be here, investigations are going to be here. There's going to be a lot of times that we're not going to get that. And I know we're not going to be able to use a magic 8-ball to figure out if it's accurate or not. But I think that we should look at perhaps coming back at them for more money. And this isn't on you necessarily, but I think that effort, looking at the school board to put forth maybe 10% more, something into this, just because I know that it's on its face, because people are going to think, well, 30% they're going to be patrolling the streets or not. It's going to be, there's that many calls for service. That's why you're bringing it up here, because there is that much of a demand. So I just think as a community as a whole, we just need to be prepared for that, because I know how busy that position is going to be. Mr. Peccarelli.
So to that end, do we get report outs after, at the end of the year or whatever, kind of look back as to how much they've actually had to deal with?
Well, we
in schools?
can, through the chief, we can ask to have a year-end report, an after-action report done with calls. We can do it quarterly, monthly. I mean, right now, the ability to capture that data is amazing. And but it's also the time. So it's like, you only responded to 3 disorderly conduct calls this week. But each one of them took, 6-8 hours because you had to get a hold of mom and dad. This is this kid, another kid showed a picture of that kid, and but all this craziness that adds hours and hours and hours onto these calls. To your point, which is a great point, that's the kind of information I like to see come back, because that's the reality of these investigations. With minors and juveniles, it's a whole nother ballgame. But yes, I believe, Chief, what would you think?
Well, I guess what specifically are you looking for would be my question. Are you looking for us to track overtime? It would be above and beyond
I think
their
calls
normal.
for service.
Okay, we could very easily do that. Not a problem.
Just
But there's obviously a lot of time. A lot of the value of the SRO is the time spent in the schools, developing the relationships. So it's calls for service is a metric, of course, but it's, I would say, a small piece of the puzzle. So there are some things we can measure. We can certainly measure, like you referred to, investigations that occur after the traditional hours. That happens quite frequently. We can very easily track that. And overtime is not something they're currently expected to contribute to in this arrangement. Arrangements are from across the various school districts vary greatly. Some school districts pay 100% of the wages and no overtime. Some pay 67% of the straight time wages and all the overtime. I mean, as I check throughout the area, the agreements, like I said, vary widely. So if you want to track, I said calls for service, that's easy. We can even probably track like student encounters. How many encounters did you have, positive, negative? There's different metrics. Overtime is very easily tracked. I mean, that I can provide for you. If there's something else that you're looking for, obviously let me know and we can find a way to track that as well.
So then the other thing I would just ask, because we're going to if we put a second SRO in now, right? The idea behind that is it should help to drive down incidents that are occurring, right? That's the intention. So what can we start looking at to compare prior to us doing that? And then once they're in there, is there things that we can start tracking to see what kind of positive impact we're having?
Sure. I would think the types of calls for service,
Staff complaints.
yeah, that should be easy to come. Obviously, you're going to have to give a little time to let things settle in and such.
Correct.
But if you look, if you want to compare stats maybe from this year to the end of the school next year, that would be easy to do as well.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Barber? Oh, I'm sorry. Do you? Mr. Barber?
Just FYI, Officer Wallace works with Volition.
Yep.
And so he gives us statistics on who's vaping and who has cigarettes and things like that among the schools themselves. So that information is available, and it's reported to us. But also in working with Volition, we're doing a little bit of that DARE work he's also in tune to that and helps us in Volition deal with what's going on in the schools and how we address that in terms of what we can do and working with the social workers in the school. So that's all part of this loop, so just FYI.
Thank you. Oh, Alderwoman Eichmann?
Thank you, Mayor. Looking at the fiscal impact on our council action sheet, excuse me, it states no additional funding will be required from the city for 2025 due to the cost share with the school district and the current unfilled vacancies at the PD. Additional funding would need to be incorporated into the 2026 budget and beyond. So just a few quick questions on that. Obviously, when we're going to be using an officer that's already within, we're not hiring outside
Well,
for this position, or?
they would be someone from within, but the goal in this is to actually, we're currently at 61 sworn, would be to raise that to 62. But it would be someone from the Franklin Police Department that would serve that role.
And we would still be looking to fill any vacancies on the
That
PD.
vacancy.
Correct,
Correct.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the mayor, with you mentioning what you did as far as the cost share, is that something that you feel we should present possibly to the district, that the city would put in maybe 20% and the district would be responsible for 80? Seems fair to me.
I'm going to ask our counselor at this point if that's something we would do now, or is this,
With the MOU.
Notes on something coming up next. I didn't catch the question.
I'm sorry. So I was questioning with the MOU if we should ask the school district if they would be willing to be responsible for paying 80% of the annual cost and 20% coming from the city, since it is primarily a school issue. Is that something that can be changed on the MOU?
It's in the discretion of the council. That's just changing who pays what. It's not really a legal point. There's no legal requirement as to who pays how much on this type.
so I guess to add to that, or my next question is, this contract moving forward, is it an annual one where we could take it on to now this year would be, we cover, 30, then we propose next year, and that's how I think I would probably go through it. Alderwoman Day?
Yeah, I'd be supportive of that too, especially considering we don't have the school board here to answer any questions on their side of the budget. So I think it's fair, if we know that we can cover this year with what we have, and they have this year at least written into their budget that will probably pass. I think it's fair to say that, we could revisit it, and then potentially at that point, we'll know more about our upcoming, 26 budget to know what, if any, changes we need to make.
Agreed. So if there's a motion on there right now, we would ask that this, maybe to add to this motion would be that this comes back next year during budget season, so we can address that and perhaps make adjustments to it. So what would we, if you can take a look at that motion, Counselor, and if you want to add some of your legalese spin on it, so you know what we're looking at.
What's the termination? Is there a termination?
So this next agreement would be for the 2025-2026 school year. So if you wanted to make a change for the following year, it would be 2026-2027 school year.
Just fine, since it does have termination date.
Well, I just want to add a sentence on the end of this action, just so we know it's going to come back and we know it's going to be reviewed.
If you're looking for the 2026 budget, that would come back later on this year to make our budgeting cycle. Just a
And whether that's got to
FYI.
be in the motion or not is up for debate, but I'd like to move it along with maybe a sentence that it comes back.
Could we add? that-
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Thank you. Could we just add that we will review it in July when the school?
Well, that's what I'm waiting for the counselor to give one sentence adder to this.
And then we can review the police reports at that point.
What's the termination date on here, Chief?
So this one in front of you is for the 2025-2026 school year.
So,
So next fall through next spring is this one. So the next agreement would be the 2026 to 2027 school year.
okay, so then this is only a 1-year
Correct.
contract. And so the return would only be for the 2026, 2027 agreement. and it would have to be here for approval anyway. So why is it necessary to
Well-
have a motion to do that?
As written, it indicates that I can enter an agreement with the superintendent each year if there's no term changes.
Okay, so
So if it's just a date change, I can do that. If you guys want some term changes, then I have to bring it back for approval, which is why it's here.
So then, you simply add after the motion on the action sheet with the contract and content to be returned to the Common Council for meeting in January 2026 for a review of terms therein.
Madam Director of Administration.
I just wanted to point out on page 40, under H terms, item number 1, it ends with shall be reviewed annually.
And that's fine. Can we make sure Mr. Barber's mic is on, please? And if we then just entertain this motion as presented, I just want to make really, really sure and clear that this is going to come back and that we, as a council, have that option to review and make an informed decision because it has a huge fiscal impact because you're also adding a full-time employee. All right, so if, Counselor, if you're good with motion as suggested or with your, if it's in there.
May I?
Yes, Alderman Hassan.
Okay. Because the school districts usually close for so many months in the year. So I don't know how many days like the office are going to be at the school. Like they have school breaks, they have, summer time off.
So
So
effectively with a 70-30 split,
Right?
they're paying for that officer to be there the entire school year.
Exactly.
And then typically what happens is we encourage the officer to use their off time over the summer. So depending upon how long they've been at the department, a significant portion of the summer could be vacation time. And then that time that they're not on vacation over the summer, we typically put them back into patrol and they patrol the roads at a time when staffing is a little bit lighter because everyone else is on vacation. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah.
So here's one scenario, unless you're ready, I can stall, I got like 5 other points. Oh, boy.
I would leave it at what I stated on the record to add that to the motion.
Okay, so we'll go over it one more time, but the last point is, for example, today, let's say the school is canceled due to cold weather, what would that SRO be doing?
Well,
If they had no open investigations to follow up on?
then they would go to the road.
Perfect.
They sign to the road.
Counselor, you want to add that last sentence and then we'll go for it again? And Courtney, your mic is off.
And that,
All right, that's fine. Counselor, go ahead.
and that the memorandum of understanding and content be returned to the Common Council for review of its terms in January of 2026.
I'll request the motion to reflect what the counselor said.
Okay, so we've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Request council approval for the police department to accept a Bureau of Justice Assistance Grant for the purchase of body-worn cameras. Chief, Captain, who's taking this one for questions?
I can take questions.
Captain, good evening.
Good evening.
I'll make the motion to approve
Look at
the
this.
authorization.
I will second. Oh,
We got a first and a seconded by Alderman Barber. All those in favor?
Mayor,
Further discussion, Alderwoman
thank you.
Eichmann.
I just wanted to point out something that I felt was really important to share with the public. Under council action sheet, it states, currently, the Franklin Police Department is the only department in Milwaukee County without a BWC program. So I just wanted to point that out. We're the last to get this, so,
in other words, approved.
yep.
Excellent.
And it's approved. Thank you.
Further discussion, Mr. Piccarelli.
And just to confirm, it was in our 2025 budget.
Correct.
just so that it's clear. Thank you.
Excellent. Wonderful. This is huge for the city as well. And once this saves careers, it saves lawsuits. It's a win-win-win. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. G5, approval to enter into a service agreement with Axon for purchase of TASER 10 as approved in the 2025 budget.
Also approve, move to approve.
Second.
We got a first and a second. Mr. City Attorney, you've got the floor.
Subject matter is in negotiations still with Axon. I proposed using the city standard form boilerplate services agreement because in addition to the devices listed on the action sheet, I understand there's also services as part of what they're providing. So suggested motion would be a motion to approve the agreement with Axon for the purchase of TASER 10 electronic control devices and services in relation thereto as finalized by the police department and the city attorney.
Is that your
My
amended
motion will hold.
Yeah,
So that's your amended
My
motion
amended motion, yes.
and your amended second?
I made them, yeah,
Whomever. It's your
Oh, I'm sorry,
amended.
you saw us first.
All right. Yes?
yes.
Okay. Mr. Pecorelli?
So in reading through all the services, there's a section on cloud offering. Do we use that today?
No, not currently, but we will.
But you will?
Yep.
Okay. So when I was reading through that, there's currently nothing in there that normally I've seen on cloud agreements like that. Normally there'd be something around notification of if they have a security breach, other things like that within like 24 hours or whatever that we get notified right away. I didn't see that in there. And the other one I didn't see was there's a link in there. So in the agreement, they actually put a link to their website. We should strike that and get them to actually provide the document, because you can change what that points to and you can change the agreement afterwards. That goes against the whole point of the contract to begin with. So I think those were two things that jumped out when I was looking through the agreement. Thank you.
So would that change the motion, sir?
No, but I'd have to review it and I'll have to get the detail on that. And I'm focused on city's standard form controlling the entire agreement. I'm not educated on all these technicalities. But in that regard, if it becomes, well, I'm not gonna say, but it's not binding in terms of whether or not the department goes ahead and finalizes it.
So we have an amended first and amended second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
G6, concept review for a condominium development located at 11590 West Meadowview Drive. Bear Development LLC is the applicant. Good evening, Mr. Fuchs.
Hello. As you mentioned, this is a concept review for condominium development, the southeast corner of Loomis and Ryan along Meadowview Drive. The property is about 7.73 acres. The applicant's proposing a public road to extend north from Meadowview Drive, and then a private drive that would extend from that new road. The project would include a total of 22 buildings and 44 dwelling units. The project also includes a parking lot for the Irish Cottage, which is located at the corner on an adjacent site. The property is currently zoned M1 Limited Industrial District, so that would this project would require rezoning to R8. It's also designated as business park on the land use plan, so that would have to be amended to multifamily residential. It may be, and just depending on the applicant's timing, how they want to proceed, but may be advantageous to wait for the zoning map change and UDO rewrite to be approved. The multifamily district that's proposed within that change would allow the density that's currently proposed. Otherwise, under the R8, it would have to be reduced to 38 units. So staff's not objecting to the proposed use. I think Meadowview Drive could be seen as a boundary between that residential and the industrial to the south. But the applicant is here and is looking for the council's feedback, whether to move forward with the development or not.
Okay, I can, I'll go last. Alderman Barber?
A while back, about a year ago, there was an industrial use that was proposed. There were some discussions of an industrial use going into that area. That, anything happening with any other industrial development?
I'm not aware of any proposals in this area currently.
Yes.
Some telecommunications kind of stuff that was going to go in for data storage or something into that area?
Selco,
Yeah, Madam Director of Administration, if you want to touch on that a little bit.
Selco had brought the, had bought the land, but in terms of anything beyond that, I don't know.
They still own the land then? And it's not part of this parcel that we're talking about today?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
a
They're
different
18,
property.
18 some acres. No, that's not at all. No, that's your question. Counselor, then Alderwoman Day?
Only in general. Primary purpose of that entire area development was for industrial, commercial development because cost of residential development, police, fire, school, etc. And I'm not the economic development director, but that might be a flat line without any additional revenue provided to the city, contrary to what industrial commercial uses provide. So, and that was the big thing back at the turn of the century when this area was being reviewed for future development.
And
If the two of you, if you're going to speak, please speak into the microphone so we can understand and hear what you're saying.
one of the things that I had said is we would have to ensure that we are meeting the TID requirements for residential mix too, and not going over that percentage that is maxed out. Make sure that we're not doing that as well.
Which I believe is newly platted residential. So as a condominium development, we'd have to look into whether that's going to affect that 35% maximum.
Alderwoman Day.
So, City Attorney stole a little bit of my thunder and my points. My concern obviously was the density. Now, Mr. Fuchs spoke to the potential that with the UDO rewrite, that the density piece might be okay with how it is currently being proposed, but we hear all the time with all of these new residential developments that police and fire are stretched to the max, especially in this part of town. So putting in another 44 homes on this area, plus another public road, even though it is a small public road, our DPW is also taxed to the max. So we're putting a tremendous strain on our public safety infrastructure without a lot of return on investment, and the TIDs in general are not performing as well as we had hoped they would perform for a variety of reasons, and residential is not the best return on investment to help those TIDs out. So at this point, I know there's not a lot of information in front of us, but at this point, I'm not super supportive of the idea. I understand that there's nothing else really being proposed for this area, but right now, in my mind, there's too many checks on the con side versus the pro side.
Okay, well, I am very much in support of it because this whole industrial area, this is one of our great green space development areas, and they're bringing a high-end development into this area, and anything that negates the M1 industrial, in my opinion, is the future of the city. and not to put, if we go back to the whole slaughterhouse arguments to everything else, this is a wonderful, wonderful area to develop. I think Bear Development has proven themselves to bring in quality projects. And I would just caution the council to not go down a rabbit hole to deny something or block something until we actually can see a little more with a concept review. And Mr. Fuchs, and I don't expect you to know this right off the top of your head, but what right now, what's the best case scenario if they want to max out to what they're presenting?
Density-wise,
Yes.
you're asking? I do not have that answer for what it would be under the new ordinance.
Okay, so I guess one of the things that we're looking at is what's the best use for the area? What's going to be the long-term play for the city? And what type of return on investment is the city going to obtain with this development opposed to an M1 development? And, you know, you're going to get, and that's the thing is, I don't know what the max out number is for this residential component, but I know that these will generate a lot of tax dollars coming through. Alderman Eichman?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, my concerns were the same as Alderwoman Day, that were maxed out on fire, police, and DPW. That being said, that doesn't come as a surprise to me personally. We know that we need to increase fire department staff. We know that down the road, it's been no secret since before my first term, that we will need a fire station located on that side of town. We know that we need to add to the PD. We know that we need to increase the DPW employment. These things I think would all be coming, is my point, regardless of this development or not. They're all things that we're doing anyway, that we know that are on the radar. That's just my personal input on it. And then I know that we mentioned the developers here. So does he have a slideshow for us, I am assuming? I hope.
I'm not sure
Not
if he has a
prepared.
presentation, but may want to.
Just to see what the building structures look like and if it's
Well,
available.
I don't know if we were to this point today. Were we having anything like that today? I didn't think we were.
Usually.
Not at this, well, not usually,
Yeah.
but not today. I mean, yes, there will be in the future, but
Okay.
this, not specifically today on this one. If there are no further questions or anything else from the developer himself, if he wants to make a comment, if not, we know this was the start. This is the beginning, but it is a wonderful development. It's great use for the area. Place is booming, looks wonderful. So, Mr. Fuchs, final words? Words of wisdom, words of fear?
I think Alderman Barber may want to.
Mr. Barber?
I guess when it comes down to a final presentation, probably including what potential industrial use there might be for the remaining land, and talk about that in lieu of just residential. When it comes to that point, maybe you could incorporate some of that discussion.
Well, I guess to add to that, if that area, certain things are zoned, so you made it, your first conversation or your comments was about the old Strauss sites, it's what, 18.7 or 18 point how many acres? Another company bought it, they're current on their taxes. Whether they want to continue to be current, that's up to them, which they have been. Whether they want to, whatever they're going to do, they're going to do. I don't know how that has a bearing. I'd like to see the higher end single family, the higher end developments go in there for long-term use. I understand we're going to be putting more pressure on our fire, police, DPW. We're going to do this regardless. Everywhere in the city, we've got developments going on, every single district. We're going to have that conversation. We're going to have that challenge. And when it's, you know, so that's what we're getting ready to do. But this is a booming, growing city with a lot of great things happening, and that's part of where we're at. So if there's no further comments on this time from you, Mr. Fuchs, at all?
Again, I think from just a land use perspective, there's a budding single family, so I think this can fit and work, and Meadowview can be that boundary. And certainly as the project moves forward, staff can get comments from police, fire, economic development director, finance to.
But what is your plan now? Do we want to move forward with some things? You're going to wait till the UDO? Because I don't want to hold this up, or at least have them come back and actually show what these look like to the council. There's a lot of pluses to having, the representatives of Bear show us what they want to do. To Alderwoman Eichmann's point, what does it look like? Where is it? How the layout's going to be? These are things that we'd like to see. I, been privy to it, but it's I think the wow factor comes when you see it.
So I can discuss that with the applicant, their timing, and if they'd like to proceed under the current and submit more quickly and proceed on the current code, or wait and see what happens with the proposed ordinance. That timing is going to be up to them essentially. If the council wanted to see more, the applicant could come back again with more details on the project before submitting to Plan Commission.
Well, however we want to do it, I guess I don't want to stall them and hold them up because I'm very, very excited that this moved away from the industrial component and is going to, I'm sure the neighbors that are around there are going to want to have something higher end built next to their house, not some sort of industrial something.
I just wanted to state that when this does come back, we should have they should be on the Plan Commission agenda first, prior to coming to council. Plan Commission should be doing the concept review.
Agreed. Okay, so this is Mr. City Attorney.
This is a concept review, and I did not hear too many comments about move this forward. Concept review is one review. It's up to the developer out there in the normal process. Developer decides whether or not to file applications, not to bring back more information, et cetera, et cetera. So I just thought I would mention that.
Alderwoman Eichmann.
Again, it's hard to give any feedback when we have no renderings. I mean, what we have in our packet, and I read blueprints for a living, isn't that easy. It's the visual that I at least enjoy seeing from the developer of what these are going to look like. It's important in our city and our standards. And that's when usually, I personally feel council gives a lot of feedback, is when we have an actual slideshow or something to view and look at. So I'm just a little disappointed we don't have that tonight. It doesn't make me against the project, but I would be excited to see what this is going to look like. I guess I just yield. It's hard, again, it's just hard to give
Right.
feedback when we have no clue what the buildings are going to look like.
Agreed, and I also would like to caution that we don't want to start, discounting these projects because we're waiting for this, industrial partner to come in on a horse and say, this is what we have for you, because that may never happen. I mean, there's things that are being developed, maybe, but it doesn't seem like that's a desirable area. We have very desirable areas in our other two business parks that are very sought after, and where we've got huge projects coming up there. It's just the far west side has always been a challenge, and that's been the direction of the previous administration and not mine. So at this point, if Mr. Fuchs, you have nothing else, then we'll put this on hold and we'll just move forward.
Nothing else?
Okay, thank you. G7, standards, findings, and decision of the City of Franklin Common Council upon the application of Andrew Cromie of the Franklin Public Schools applicant for a special exception to certain natural resource provisions of the City of Franklin Unified Development Ordinance. Who is taking this? Mr. Fuchs?
Yep.
Good evening again, welcome.
The school is proposing a walking path and boardwalk through a wetland and the associated wetland buffer and wetland setback at the middle school site and administration building on Forest Hill Avenue. The Plan Commission has previously approved a site plan application for improvements, including a building addition, a storage building, parking lot, playground, soccer fields, all on this property. Part of that project did include an alternative bid on the school's end for this boardwalk and walking path. School did decide to pursue it, so they are requesting now a disturbance of approximately 1,046 square feet of wetland, 528 square feet of wetland buffer, and 2,114 square feet of wetland setback. The only condition is to update the conservation easement to reflect the current wetland delineations and this approval if it moves forward. Staff, the Environmental Commission, and the Plan Commission are all recommending approval.
Excellent. Any questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to adopt the standards, findings, and decision of the City of Franklin Common Council upon the application.
Second.
We've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber. Alderwoman Day.
No.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Peccarelli.
5 ayes, 1 no, motion carries. G8, we've got a revised document in front of you. A resolution authorizing certain officials to execute amendment number 2 to the General Municipal Engineering Services Agreement with Grafe USA, Inc. Who is taking this? Madam Director of Administration?
At this time, I would also invite Mr. Palos and our superintendents who are here to provide their experience thus far.
Gentlemen, if you would please, at least Mike, you looking too comfortable back there? We're going to get you out of that.
If there are questions, I'm happy to answer any of them. So what I put in the council action sheet and the report, I feel like that was pretty all-encompassing. And there's a myriad of reasons why we want to continue this relationship with Mike Palos and Grafe. As I said, the superintendents are up here as well, just to kind of talk about how it's been for all of us to work with Mike and his team. If
I wouldn't mind
that's a
starting.
desire.
Are you good for a second? Okay, so Mike, again, thank you for coming tonight. I can't say enough great things about you and your organization. I deal with you all hours of the day. You're very responsive. Your crew, your team, awesome. I hear nothing but great things from the citizens. Oftentimes, when I get a number of calls, curveballs, emails, and I reach out to Mike, and Mike takes them, meets with citizens, either meets with them, talks with them, explains what the situation is. And I can't thank you enough for that, because it is it's a daunting task, in addition to overseeing and managing the projects as they come in. And I know Madam Director of Administration put forth that document 3 or 4 meetings ago, which was basically entailing everything that Grafe is doing right now, which is, we have a lot going on. I mean, I'll always say this, our city has got a lot going on. We got to keep our eye on the ball, keep things moving forward, following our UDO, following this, our master plans, all that coming together, as well as staff. Excellent. I can't say enough good things about Grafe. And I'll yield for now with my cheerleading thing. Alderwoman Day.
I agree with essentially everything that the mayor has said. I don't have any issues with, continuing working with your group. I think everything seems to be running relatively smoothly. At least I haven't heard to the contrary, so that is good news. The only question that I have based on all of this is, when we had the initial contract and then we had the First Amendment, there were dollar amounts attached to it. This one doesn't have a particular dollar amount, which I understand and I don't. And I also understand where we're getting the money from for your services and your team services. What makes me a tiny bit nervous with it being kind of a blank slate is that your services are hourly and we're comparing them against positions that were salaried. So it just makes me nervous without having like a dollar amount to sort of, we're going to run up against, if we want to do, I think last time we did $50,000. If we want to do 100,000 or 150,000, something, a little bit bigger, so there's a longer duration of time between them. But I don't want to run into a problem where all of a sudden we've got some projects that start going sideways, or we get a bunch of projects at once and we extend ourselves a little bit too much with the hourly rate, and then all of a sudden we're kind of bumping up against a budget constraint. So that's my only question. I think maybe there should be some sort of cap for now, and then when we get closer, we revisit it. Not that we would ever say no, but it just, from a budget perspective, it makes me a little nervous to have it open-ended.
Mr. City Attorney?
Isn't this a not to exceed $50,000
No, so part of the,
higher one?
yes, so part of the change here is that we also have project budgets. So there are budgets that are already decided upon, they're voted on by the Common Council, and we will be continually coming back to discuss each project and each budget as as necessary. So that goes partly into the payments, right, that we are paying to Grafe for their services, in addition to the personnel, the 3 positions that are open and their benefits and salaries. So I guess, yes, there's not a not to exceed amount that's in there in terms of general engineering services. However, there are a lot of checks and balances when it comes to the projects that they're working on. And predominantly the work that they do is project oriented. The rest of what is done is typically shouldered at least partially, if not majority, by staff.
And then my second question is thoughts on trying to make this more of a permanent solution, or are we still trying to recruit for these positions to be city positions, knowing that the recruitment process has been a bit difficult and we seem to have something really good in place right now?
I would say that if you're asking me personally, and I would believe from everything that I've heard, Mr. Paulos and our superintendents would agree, we would prefer to make this a permanent arrangement. The market right now for such employees is very, very dry, and we are up against a lot. So the additional thing is that we have a great working relationship. We've never had this kind of collaboration between all of these department heads, and we are all able to work together very nicely. The continuity that it provides is priceless, really.
If I could add to that, Alderwoman. So if you ever want to stop into the Thursday staff meeting downstairs at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
is when the engineering weeklies. However, there's a component here that is kind of overlooked a little bit. There's a cost efficiency number 3rd point, which is important to look at. However, there's also the point of when you have Grafe, we're not going to find that one employee that can provide all the services that we need from Grafe without paying for those specific skill sets. And that's the huge part of this. That's monster.
Right. So essentially what we would be doing is we would have maybe 2-3 positions filled in the other scenario, right? And those would be permanent positions or full-time positions. And we would be stuck with whatever that expertise is. And then we would be contracting out, much like the sheet of paper that I left for all of the council. It provides kind of a rundown of years past and how much we have consulted out. This essentially removes the middleman and replaces it with Mike and his team. And then we do have access to experts that have actually saved us quite a substantial amount of money in just the last 4 months. Like the DPW expansion project and the grading, we saved how much from what was quoted and then the changes after the fact?
I believe it was over $500,000.
So over $500,000 for those that drifted off. A lot of money.
Yes, correct.
That's a lot of money, and there's more to come. See, I mean, this is, and if you could touch Mr. Polis on one of the things that we didn't, as a city, didn't really handle well enough with the reimbursements from developers, and there's another component that the cost.
Pass through.
That, could you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Sure, it's common in other municipalities to, when you have a consultant as your engineer, if you're working on a specific development, you track your time, our time, staff time, and you essentially invoice or pass through to those developers that cost, instead of having city staff taking on those costs themselves, which is only appropriate this day and age as people are looking at a way to save, especially tight budgets. So that's common in a lot of municipalities.
And that is an area that we will be looking at, basically emulating other areas to make sure that we are passing through that cost as much as possible.
You do that somewhat now with inspection services, but you don't do it with engineering services.
And we do it with planning too.
Yeah.
Mr. Piccarelli? Oh, you still have
Oh,
the floor.
I was just gonna say, in my mind, from what I've seen prior to you coming on board, I think this just seems more prudent for a lot of reasons that I would be supportive if it was something that administration wanted to bring forward to try to make this arrangement more permanent rather than, continually trying to recruit to fill these positions. I think that's probably the better way to go, but that's just my opinion, but I would be supportive of you pursuing that.
So I think that the master service agreement that we brought through, or the second amended agreement, is trying to lead that way. And I think that if it were approved, ultimately the only piece of that would be to remove the job descriptions and open positions from the website.
And then it would require a budget amendment to reallocate those personnel services.
Thank you, Alderman Eichman,
And
then
we're-
Alderman Piccarelli.
We're also saving on not paying employee benefits and healthcare costs and so forth too. with This, I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Alderman Piccarelli? Did you have something?
I did.
Okay.
So, since this arrangement, and I'm supportive of it to start with, and it gives a lot of ability to scale, right? So we can scale up and scale down as we have projects. We got a lot of different developments going on. That's a big deal, and I've seen this in other areas, right? So, but we're going from staff, right, to doing this now. We're contracting this out, and so that normally requires additional governance around that because you've got contract resources. You don't have the normal employee relationship, right? So the only thing I would challenge on this is how do we kind of demonstrate where their BRAFE is working, right? What they're working on and kind of a macro view of that. So we have a picture of what's going on and from a governance standpoint, you have that visibility because without that, we're going to end up with a lot of questions on, well, where is it, we're spending X amount of dollars, where does it all go and all that kind of stuff, right? And so I think you just got to think through that portion of it because I'm supportive of these arrangements. They usually work really well, especially in places where we need to scale quickly and then all of a sudden we have stuff that slows down and everything that there's a benefit. That's why these exist. But you do need different kinds of governance around that to ensure that everything's working as we expect. So that would be my only add to this is just figure out how we provide that governance.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you what we're doing right now. We have weekly meetings. We're in touch with everything. The four of us, sometimes the five of us sitting here are in constant communication on projects. In terms of what's spent, we have project-specific invoices that have been coming in as well. So we are tracking and will obviously continue to track. And I am just as much a part of the project management and the people management, because I think it's important to also acknowledge the fact that we do have a staff downstairs for engineering. So it would be kind of like a hybrid, but I think that this is what's best for everybody. And I know that from working with the staff down there very closely that they really enjoy this whole arrangement right now.
And so I'd say the part that maybe you could think about a little bit is from what should be shared to the council as at a macro level of kind of how things are going on some sort of
Regular
erratic
basis.
Alderman, are you looking at like a project update?
Yeah, at a high
provided?
level, at a high level. I'm not talking individual, but
Well,
just
okay, and
rolled
that's,
up. Yep.
I think that's reasonable. I mean, you kind of already had that document done.
Yeah.
All the projects listed, and you can just say, where they're at. And it's a working document, and that can be something shared whenever. It's like accessible 100%.
Yeah, I'm used to hey, this is where things are at, budget, schedule, resource, where do we have issues, risks, that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
That's what I'm looking for.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Alderman Eichman.
If we were to move in that direction, Kelly, would you still remain overseeing the engineering department? You have a full plate. Would you still be doing that, or would that change down the road?
Don't see how that would change anytime soon.
Thank you.
And to your point, is that, so when Kelly Hirsch was hired on as our Director of Administration, okay? nowhere in there did she take on, or were we expecting her to take on this responsibility, which is an added responsibility, which is, so, just so we're all clear up here, and anybody listening at home, so the engineering department, Grafe is taking on the responsibility of projects. Our director of administration is not only taking on an input in projects, but also running the day-to-day staff issues. So someone calls in sick, someone wants to go home, someone needs, whatever they need, they're going to our director of administration. That's supposed to be handled elsewhere. So that's something that we need to address, because we can't just sit back and say, well, director of administration's got this. I mean, there's got to be a reality standpoint, because her plate is that full that, you know, and whether we look at someone down there that wants to step up and take a leadership role in something, that they're given some sort of title where they can handle off days and schedules, and if there's some intermediate conflict with employees, because as we know, it's not just showing up with, you know, everybody gets along, and she's handling their daily requests and problems and everything. Kelly's handling that, and she needs to be compensated for that. And we need to look at that and how that's going to work. And she's been doing it without, and she hasn't said a peep. I'm the one on this soapbox right now, because I see how she's stretched daily, and this is something else. And I think the way to go with this, and this is not on the agenda, so I won't talk any more about it, but I have ideas. So I'll yield with that. Mr. Craig?
Going to actually, coming off of your point, with our internals, with our internal staff, both the superintendents are here. Is there any input that either one of you would like to share as far as good, bad, and different, or anything that's been real positives that we can kind of take as information for us? Or is it just, hey, everything's groovy and really don't have anything to share and add to like the net positive as far as the discussion?
Well, I would say, being new in my own role, but the time we've spent on projects and just what Alderman Picarelli touched on, the scalability that we can pull on is valuable. And just as you can see, the next couple agenda items, that's a result of Grafe working with us to get a lot of these things up to date that we're still digging out from underneath. So I don't see a downfall right now.
I couldn't agree more. The partnership we have is nothing but phenomenal. It's been great. He listens to us, we listen to him, and we got somebody we can bounce stuff off of. And he's been great to work with, so bad word to say.
Yeah, it is 100% a collaborative partnership here. And like I said, we are all involved on most things. So yeah, I just, it's night and day different. It really is.
And then to kind of follow up on that, when, you know, as the mayor kind of mentioned about, you know, other people that are on city staff within the engineering department, you know, without there being that brass ring that someone can reach for, like, what then is the kind of the carrot that's going to be led to, like, hey, this is opportunity. Show that you have leadership ability. Show that you have leadership skills. Is that something that is being like a proof of concept that's being put together, or is that just a we need time to develop our staff that is on, you know, that is currently part of a.
So I can say that 2 of our staff members are nearing retirement. When the fourth technician had resigned and went back to the city of Milwaukee, I had 2 of our technicians approach me with a solution where they were taking more on and had received promotion and adequate compensation, as well as the third had received adequate compensation. So in terms of that, I could tell you that both of those employees separately has said to me that they wish that they had more time in their careers left because they're enjoying their work again. And I think that in terms of growth, I think, you know, it's what you make it, right? So we have a younger person that's one of our technicians that will potentially, hopefully, stay on for a while. And he has really stepped up in this time frame and taken on quite a bit and is very, I would say, hands-on in learning what he can and just kind of jumping into it. So we might have somebody there, but I think as it stands right now,
They need time to cook.
right. But I also think that they're experiencing support and growth that they didn't have prior. And so I think in terms of that, and then also working with Mike Paulos and his team, we're all there supporting each other.
So my concern then would be if someone doesn't see that, that opportunity where we would lose a younger employee that says, you know what, Mike's pretty rad, and I maybe want to work for Mike straight away as opposed to,
Hey, Mike?
and that would be my fear as far as it goes, because Mike is a rad guy.
I think your other term, groovy. I'm with him on that too. So your dialect tonight's
I
wonderful.
think in terms of what you're talking about, I don't see that happening. I think it would be more likely that we would lose this employee to another community. However, I think that I think part of the terms that he and the other technician had worked out was to say, hey, I want to be here long term.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Thank you. I just wanted to add again, and I've said this in the past on the record, although Mike is not quote unquote a City of Franklin employee, the amount of availability that he provides to us is outstanding. I'm not sure how many up here have had the need to call him in any issues, but he's right there, he's prompt. If he can't pick up the phone right there and then he gets back to me on a timely basis, I can't just give him enough credit for that. So thank you, Mike.
With that, would you like to lead into the motion? Oh,
No.
Mr. Pecorelli first, and then our finance director, Brown.
So I just have a question then. So if we go through as it's stated, when would this come back for another review? So where I'm going with this is, it really shouldn't be like an open-ended contract. There should be some term to it. We should review it and then extend or whatever. So
Annually,
So is it annually?
if that's what you would propose.
I think my comment was going to kind of piggyback off of that. I am 100% in favor for this, but my recommendation from the beginning was to have this an annual contract. And to also Alderwoman Day's point, I understand it's hard to put a contracted dollar amount on the services that they are providing because we're just unsure as to how much time each project is going to take. But I get concerned from a financial perspective that, if we reduce the funding from the city engineer and the assistant engineer positions and move it over to contractual services, how do we keep track of that amount? And then what happens if projects just keep growing and how does the city put a budgeted amount on the total contract in itself and ensure that we're not just open-endedly spending engineering services? Just like we do with GIS services, like we do with city assessor services, we have those hard budgeted amounts and they have to fall within those budget constraints. So how do we do that from this perspective, I think is a discussion that we need to have.
So I'll just take a step back for a second. So on projects, you have controls around the project because there's only authorized certain dollar amount, right? So engineering fees that go to the project, if at some point, if you start running out of dollars there, they're going to have to come back because you don't have the dollars to spend there. So then, in my mind, that kind of, at least at a high level, controls that. But to what you were bringing up is essentially that engineering that kind of is the way I think about it is the O&M, right? What the city needs to operate for all the other things that aren't these projects. So can we put a dollar amount on that portion, and then the projects kind of ebb and flow as they need to, and we've got project controls around all of them, but that middle part, is there some dollar amount we can associate with that and say, okay, that's the starting point, and if we're going to exceed it, go back.
So I think the concern was initially, and maybe Mike can speak to this, was when we have city projects, for example, the DPW expansion project, our previous city engineer, we didn't allocate his personnel services and the engineering team's time to that specific project. We only allocated the contracted engineering services to those projects. So as now Grafe coming in, yes, we are keeping track of how much time Grafe is putting in for each of those projects. We are not allocating those services to that project because they're acting as a contracted employee of the city and not an actual contract for the specific project. So to your point, it's kind of hard to do that. Now, if Grafe or Foth or any of the other engineering teams were to come forward and be contracted onto those specific projects, then yes, we would allocate those sources to those projects. But as the Grafe team works on projects for the city, we are not allocating those services to those individual projects at the moment.
And I can say, just to kind of extend that a little bit further, when you look back at even just the last 12 months, starting in August and going backwards, everything was contracted out. So we are essentially, like I said, eliminating the middleman. We are eliminating those contracted services. So, I think this becomes a hard situation because, for example, we have a project that's been ongoing. It is 80% picked up by a MMSD. That project expense is $250,000 for the engineering services. In theory, what we would be doing is moving away from contracting to contract and move that middle piece out and just use Grafe for those services that we would already be, that we have been contracting out.
Yeah, I think my only concern would be is to figure out a dollar amount that is a cap on it. And if it's got to be higher, because we think there's a lot, just that we have a cap on this, because I'll say I'm not comfortable having an open amount. There's got to be some number, but it could be pretty high, right?
Right.
If you got a lot of projects and things like that, but we do need in my view, we need a cap number.
So you were referring to cap number for O&M, basically for our meetings, stuff like that. Yep. Okay.
And some of whatever,
Yeah,
if it wasn't
any of their
project,
services above and beyond.
that wasn't going to a project.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Day.
In the budget for this year, so in previous years, going back to what Director Hirsch was alluding to, when we had city staff, and then we also had those usually 2 to 3 contracts. I believe that was approximately $150,000 when you had them all combined together. In this particular budget for 25, do we have that line item in there, or did we take it out? Because that money would also then sort of be engineering budget-ish numbers that we had. So we've got the staff positions that are vacant plus that amount. So I'm wondering if whatever that amount is, that's the line item, could that be that cap that we're looking to, because it's already a line item in the budget, could we just reallocate it to be something where if we're hitting that kind of number, that's when this would come back for discussion?
So I understand what you're saying. However, yes, we have $300,000 in the budget for engineering services. And then you would have the 2 positions that you could potentially take that dollar amount and move it over. The only concern that I see with that or issue is there's more than just Grafe services that are accounted for in that 300,000 engineering services. We have like stormwater review, we have inspection review that we have annual contracts with other people for. So you could potentially use some of that, but like I said, we still have other engineering services unless at some point in the future we decided to completely go away from any other engineering service being contracted and then just having Grafe do the inspection reviews, the stormwater reviews, do everything. Then you could use that line item specifically and that amount.
And then, so in lieu of maybe trying to find a dollar amount, because that seems to be something kind of a moving target to try to hit, maybe it's a time frame, like every 6 months we come back and revisit this and we have, kind of where we are spending wise, what's left, what we're looking at
Quarterly.
for the next, I mean, it could be quarterly too, but, just maybe that's the more strategic way to go, rather than come up with a particular dollar amount, just some sort of check-in process to make sure that we're on target. And if there are, things that we're seeing from your meetings that you're having more regularly coming down the road that we might be bumping up against some issues, then we have, time to pivot and do things at that point. Maybe that's more prudent than finding a dollar amount.
Yeah, and I would be happy to, on a quarterly basis, this document that you guys got, just make sure that you guys are getting this, but then you would see, obviously, the vendors would go down and then Grafes would go up.
Right.
That's,
And
could you say that again, please, Director?
You would just see the total engineering services by vendor that on an annual basis, Grafe would have the highest amount and you would see our annual services for other vendors go down.
Right. So just to draw attention to this document, the Director of Finance had provided to us somewhere around the summer of this past year of 2024. So that's why 2024 is very low. However, what is on here is total engineering expense by fund and then also by vendors. And it has been roughly $1.2 million for 2022 and 2023. And that is in addition to personnel costs that totaled over $500,000. So ultimately, it is our assumption that these numbers, these expenses will go down, especially as we start to move towards working on that pass-through, but also to bring some of those city projects down to a more scalable level.
So I guess I would then make a motion as it's written here, but then to add something to it that there would be some sort of quarterly report to the council on the status of engineering projects and expenses.
I'll
Perfect.
second that.
So we got a first and a second by Alderman Eichman. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Well done. Thank you. G9, a resolution to issue change order number 1 for the water tower transmission main contract C, project to increase the contract price by $11,193.80 to Vinton Construction Co. Who's taking this? Mr. Beardsley?
This is change order number 1. This was some months ago. The utility needed an easement for this contract C up by the water tower. In lieu of that easement, it was agreed previously to supply them with a lateral. Those components they need weren't in the bid. So this is to provide them with what was agreed upon at a previous date.
That's fair. There's a motion.
Second.
We got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion.
Sorry, I just wanted to state that, I'm sorry, I didn't hear if you said it, but this one and the next item were both approved at the Board of Water meeting tonight.
Thank you. That helps.
Thank you. Again, we got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G10, a resolution to issue change order number 2 for the water tower transmission main contract C, project to increase the contract price by $10,271.79 and the contract timeframe by 175 days to Vinton Construction Company.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
First and a second, you capture first and second, and Mr. Pecorelli, and then Alderwoman Day.
So in the second paragraph of this, it has the change of the timeframe is due to incorrect materials being approved by the city's contracted consultant that do not meet city specifications. So is this a contracted consultant, like there's a contract with that?
Yes, yes.
And then what's the ability to go back for these dollars? What's the,
So the part that was missed in here is that was an issue. This cost, that the part that didn't get in here was that this contract was bid without ARPA language. The contractor did not know that. It was not till roughly October they were notified. And the valve issue between the engineer and the contractor was settled mutually between them. This number is for the changes that the contractor has to pay to his subs because they didn't know of the federal language and the wage rates they were going to have to apply, and working through with the attorney, just delayed everything, and we worked it out. The delays, there was miscommunication from day one. So this was the number to get the project going this spring and get it finished.
I would like to add, though, to this. This is another thing where, just to highlight this unbelievable partnership that we have, because we wouldn't have known that the valves weren't up to city specifications and standards had we not had city engineer Mike Paulos looking at that and providing that information to us, but also insisting that the contractor not only get it right, but then eat the cost.
Thank you.
thank you for that.
Alderwoman Day?
So the changes are basically wage related for that ARPA piece, not, okay, gotcha. And then just for clarification then, so when the bid came in, the specs were always wrong and it was just not caught that they were wrong, or?
The specs were correct.
Okay.
The issue was the engineer, which was not Grafe. I'll make sure that's perfectly clear.
Yeah, no, I know the timing. I know it's not you.
So make sure. The design engineer at the time approved shop drawings, which are the products, the approved true products, the bolts and the valves that did not meet the city spec.
Gotcha. Okay.
That was the issue.
Okay.
So at no cost to the city, that was
Sure.
figured out between the contract engineer,
Sure.
and not the city.
Okay. So, yeah, so we're not on the hook for that. It's just the wages.
Correct.
For
Correct.
$100. Got it. Thank you.
Motion to adopt.
Well, hold on a second. We've got a first and a second. Further discussion continues with Alderwoman
Just
Eichman.
quick question. When is the project expected to be complete? I know it's kind of a broad question right now, but are we looking like this summer, June still, or possibly? I know anything can arise.
Their goal is to start March, April, weather dependent. That was stated to us as soon as they can this spring.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G11, a resolution authorizing certain officials to accept the 30-foot wide sanitary sewer easement and the 50-foot wide temporary construction easement from Shiv Shikati Venture LLC at 7800 and 8050 West Ryan Road, tax key number 885-9999-010, and tax key number 885-9999-008. Any comments
I'll
on this?
make the motion to adopt.
Good. We have a first.
Second.
We got a second by Mr. Pecorelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. G12, a resolution authorizing certain officials to accept a 50-foot wide temporary construction easement from Karma Laboratories, Inc. to the city of Franklin, along with the south property lines of lots 3 and 2 of the Karma Laboratories, Inc. property at 9410 South 76th Street, tax key numbers 884-9003-000 and tax key number 888-9002-000.
Move to approve.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G13, a resolution to authorize staff to execute and record the attached sanitary easement from 7521 West Ryan Road, James B. O'Malley Revocable Trust, tax key number 897-9996-000.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a first and a second by Alderman Barber. Further discussion, Counselor? Nothing? Bringing the 8 ball, 30 seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G14, a resolution to authorize a professional services contract with Foth Infrastructure and Environment LLC to provide design and construction engineering services for the Ryan Road Trunk Sewer for a fee of $84,000.
So move.
Second.
First and second, further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G15, resolution to award the Ryan Road Trunk Sewer Project to the lowest bidder, the Wanasek Corp., in the amount of $236,780.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Well, first and a second, and we've got Alderwoman Day, you got the floor.
I need to abstain from this one.
Very good. Okay, why don't we do a roll call? Oh, Alderman Craig.
So out of the engineer estimate was at $500,000, but everyone's bid was significantly lower. Is there something that we're missing that we're not privy to, or that, is not being, that may have been a detail that's been missed by all the bidding that was done
Gentlemen,
here?
at the floor.
Some of it is the bidding climate right now seems to be very competitive this spring, this season. And the other part was, at the time, we didn't know what we were going to need to go under 76th Street. So they took in worst case scenario of using a casing pipe and boring, which we do have permission to open cut, which is,
Just my alarm bells went off when I see that, estimated costs and then everyone really, really far below that. So
Yep, that was our question right away when they came in. I was like, what are we missing?
Yep.
Okay, we've got a first and second roll call, please.
Alderman Peccarelli.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Abstain.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
all right.
5 ayes, no noes, 1 abstention, motion carries. G16. Oh, Mr. City Attorney, you've got the floor.
Going back through all these, many of these items had to be tweaked, et cetera, over the last few days. Going back to that G14, the Foth contract,
technical correct.
worked with staff on that, and where we ended up was, and it hadn't changed after we had these discussions, correct, Mr. Beardsley?
No, that's why it was in here with technical corrections. And
Okay, so that's in the motion.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Moving forward, G16, standards, findings, and decision of the City of Franklin Common Council upon the application of Croatian Eagles Soccer Club applicant for a special exception to certain natural resource provisions of the City of Franklin Unified Development Ordinance. Good evening, Ms. X.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for a natural resource special exception for the Croatian Eagles soccer. That property is zone P1, and it is a park. So the item has been reviewed by Environmental Commission, who made a recommendation to adopt the standards, findings, and decision. They did have a recommended additional condition that the lighting that is proposed be dark sky shielded. The proposed lighting does actually have like a full cutoff, so it already complies with those standards. There was a public hearing as per usual at the January 9th Plan Commission, and then mitigation will take place on the north parcel. So basically this is a request for a placement of 7 lighting poles within the wetland buffer or within the wetland setback on the southern property to allow for night play on those fields. So it'll extend the season in terms of lighting for them. And the application meets the requirements of the UDO. Plan Commission did allow for that mitigation on the north parcel. That's something that they can grant a waiver for. And so if there are any questions, I'm happy to entertain.
Any questions? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
First and second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G17, An ordinance to amend 15-10.012, membership of the Unified Development Ordinance to change the Plan Commission membership to remove the city engineer member and in place thereof provide an alderperson to serve on the Plan Commission, G17. So I would like to start. Mr. Martinez, good evening and welcome.
Thank you.
And so this item went to plan. It wasn't caught that the motion was properly made, and it passed at that point. And then when it was brought back, because there was no technical correct motion made, we didn't have enough to make sure that there were 4 affirmative votes to make sure it went through. That's why it's here now with saying it failed due to the lack. So I will make it real quick as to why I believed and this was making this change, and it was me that brought this forward because I felt that I didn't like the optics of having a city engineer that answers to the mayor having a voting voice in this. And I also felt that when I was an alderman, I didn't like that optic, number one. I also didn't like the fact that so much information at Plan Commission doesn't get properly moved forward or shared because there is that walking quorum issue that we get reminded about and all sorts of other things, that there's so much going on that I felt the most transparent way to do it, the T word, is to have another elected on this body because there's that much going on. And I think Alderwoman Day will probably agree there is a ton going on and there's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot that's happening there. And I just know that to the benefit of the city, the benefit of taxpayers, and to have another person up there that's an elected makes the most sense. We have 3 on finance for a reason, and that's because we all share in the pain, and that's a great thing to have 3 electeds there. I think the time in the city is long past that we need to now have that other elected official on the Plan Commission, and that's my 2 cents. Alderwoman Day.
Thank you. Yeah, so I was not in attendance at the last Plan Commission meeting. Had I been there, the vote would have been 4-1-1. So it would have passed, as it did the first time. What I will say is I agree wholeheartedly with removing the city engineer as a voting member. I don't believe, I could be wrong, we have a lot of boards and committees and commissions, but I believe that might be the only one where there's a city staff member that has a vote.
Correct.
There are staff that sit on for technical assistance, there are staff that run the meetings, but that was the only one where a city staff member had a vote. So I do wholeheartedly believe, though, that somebody from engineering should be at every Plan Commission meeting, not in a voting capacity, but much like we have representatives from planning there. It doesn't have to be the same person every time, but I think there are benefits to having somebody with that background there for those technical questions that may arise from the commission members. So that would be my request, that we still have someone from engineering be at those meetings. I also don't have an issue with there being a second alder on that particular commission. I think there are a lot of things that happen there. It's very complex. A lot of times, we get to these meetings and it's a lot for, myself and the mayor to kind of bring back, for everyone. So having 2 people there is better. And also having another voice of an elected official in a voting capacity, I think is prudent. The one thing I will say about this, since we're kind of opening up the whole code for this particular commission, and this is dovetailing another agenda item this evening, I do believe there might be some components of G19 that could be incorporated into the Plan Commission that is a better use or a better amalgamation of some of those priorities and some of those objectives than combining them into the Parks Commission. So as long as we're opening the can of worms, I'm comfortable with the changes that the mayor wants to make. I would also like to look at some other changes. So if we move forward on this piece tonight, I'm fine with that, but I would like the ability to also examine potentially changing some of the roles and responsibilities of Plan Commission to incorporate some things from the Environmental Commission if indeed that group is to sunset. With that, I'll yield.
So to respond back to one of your points, and I brought this up at the meeting when you were running that horrible marathon, terrible, but I'm glad you did it, not me. I assured the rest of the plan commission, because there was one plan commissioner that we had the heated debate, which was the never-ending debate, and it was like Groundhog Day. It was his arguments, my arguments. We woke up again, same arguments. And it's, the bottom line is, we have GRAFE. We will have a representative from GRAFE at every single plan commission meeting. So everybody knows there will be an engineering representative at every single plan commission meeting. So that addresses that. Your second point, and I think I would all ask Ms. X this, because she's been saddled with parks and environmental, and if there are things that could come forth to plan that you feel is the way to put them through, I mean, because you're basically taking situations, complaints, incidents, and you're funneling them to where you think they should go. And if something can go to plan, it goes to plan. I think it's, and I'll go over that a little more in G19, so I'll yield for now on this.
I move.
I'll second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G18, ordinance to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, to define developer's deposit in section 15-11.0103, specific words and phrases. Who's taking this? Mr. Martinez?
Yes, thank you. As you recall, the fee schedule was updated last year, and the fee schedule provided for a developer's deposit for plat applications and plan development districts. However, the fee schedule update didn't define what is a developer's deposit, so this is an amendment to provide a definition for the developer's deposit. So it's explained how the hourly rate for charging the consultant for charging the developers for the consulting fees is calculated, if it's for in-house planners and if it's for outside consultants, and also states that any leftover balance of the developer's deposit will be refunded to the developer. So this provides clarity to the fee schedule update.
Okay, so I apologize, okay? Let's get through this, and then we're gonna take a 5-minute break. So let's get through this, G18. Is there a motion on this?
I'll make the motion. Second.
First and second over there, you got it, Madam Clerk? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. We're gonna take a 5-minute recess. It's 8:07, please come back about 8:15, 12, 13. Now,
Yeah, Mike's.
G19, ordinance to amend 10-7 Parks Commission of the Municipal Code to add and incorporate the powers and duties of the Environmental Commission and to add the current members thereof to be members of the Parks Commission and to repeal and rescind 10-14 Environmental Commission of the Municipal Code. Ms. X, please start us.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a request to consolidate the existing Parks Commission and Environmental Commission into one body. There are a couple of reasons that this item is being proposed. Broadly speaking, they are there are areas of overlap in the duties and areas of interest that some of the participants and volunteers that are part of those commission have. There are also some areas of overlap in terms of areas of review, questions and concerns that they entertain from the public, et cetera. And then there is also an ongoing issue of quorum for Environmental Commission. That commission has often difficulty achieving a quorum, and it has a mandatory review role under the variance process known as a natural resource special exception. So that item I just presented, Environmental Commission must make a recommendation on all of those application types before they receive their final review by this body under the current ordinance. Under the proposed new ordinance, that is proposed to change a little bit, but that commission would still have a very significant review role. So they get a pretty extensive look at what those applications look like and provide citizen feedback on whether or not the applications are reasonable. And it has caused significant delay for some applications that lack of quorum. So this would be a resolution to that problem. There's also the administrative burden of the overall management of 2 commissions. So I staff both of those commissions, and while it's my pleasure to do that, and I really like the work, it does mean 2 night meetings a month that could potentially be consolidated into one, packet distribution, agendas, et cetera, for both myself and the administrative staff in the planning department. And I provide quite a lot of other supplemental staff support in addition to just the overall administrative kind of clerk type duties. So this is not a proposal that has been without objection from those commissions. So generally speaking, the Environmental Commission, the members of that commission are of 2 minds about it, but generally supportive. I think they recognize that their role is important, but also that they are not able to accomplish it as effectively because they can't achieve quorum. The Parks Commission is a little bit more split, and this is something that, as I've had conversations about this, those concerns kind of fall into categories of there not being enough support or structure for those bodies, so that there's things that they're not able to accomplish or that continue on over time, and that the meetings get really long, and they're worried that the meetings would get longer, which I think is a valid concern. And then also just a confusion of roles. So there, as I mentioned earlier, there are areas of overlap and areas of required review that would have to be consolidated under this, but I think they're both concerned that in some ways those commissions don't always get their points of view expressed, or the work that they're trying to accomplish doesn't get completed, in the sense that like it kind of dies, and some of that is down to just a lack of training. I think all of these commissions would benefit from a little bit more management as volunteers, and that's something that isn't really part of this proposal, but is a question that has come up in the discussions about this. So I do have to note the Parks Commission did take up a motion making a recommendation not to combine. The vote on that motion was 2 yes, 1 no, and 2 abstentions. So I believe it did not pass, although I'm not great at this kind of math. And they did have some questions about forming a subcommittee. So if this was something that the 2 commissions were consolidated, would they then be able to create a subcommittee specific to environmental tasks? The short answer is that their current administrative rules do allow for that. That's something that I don't know that we have the capacity to do additional staffing for.
So thank you. First of all, I'll start. And the reason why I wanted to do this, having served as a Parks Commissioner before getting into the elected part, and then representing as an alder on the Parks Commission and on the Environmental Commission, and knowing that we've got quorum issues on environmental, my huge motivator was your workload. And the fact that you've got to run parks, you've got to run environment, you've got to do their agenda, you got to do their minutes, you got to do this, you got to do everything that has to do with parks. And that's in addition to your normal jobs, which are, we got way too much going on. And I understand, and I've spoken to some of the members of the Parks Commission about their concerns. And I know what the concerns of the environmental are. And I believe that combining the two is it's the most streamlined, right thing to do. We have way too many, in my opinion. There's some other boards and commissions that need to be moved. But this is one way in which to help staff, you, not become overwhelmed. I've talked to a very passionate Parks Commission member, very passionate, that I've known since I was probably, I don't know, first grade. And she was very adamant about, not doing this, and actually brought up, well, what if you kept the environmental and you just had Parks met every other month and environmental met every other month, and that way you have one meeting a month for each. And I simply try to express that, that staff, meaning you at this point, very versed in everything that's got to be done as far as environmental, because another concern she had was that, well, I'm not sure what all goes on in environmental. I said, well, either did I, but you learn from staff. You learn, you ask questions, and your job as a board and commission is to come up with a reasonable solution or a reasonable position And that's what you do. You don't, get on a hill and, I always give former Alderwoman Wilhelm a lot of credit because she knew the intricacies. She knew the state statutes and she was an expert at it. And that's great. But for those of us that aren't, we depend on the staff to answer questions and to help, lead us down a reasonable path on solutions. So I think that, combining the two, and if there are things, let's say that come to you that you're like, what, this could actually go to plan. Okay, this could actually go here. However it is, but that's, in my opinion, the most reasonable, prudent thing to do by eliminating environmental, combining the two, and go from there. I'll yield for now. Alderwoman Day?
Thank you. And Ms. X, thank you. That was an excellent recap of our Parks meeting from last week when we had the discussion. It was a lengthy discussion, and there's passion, I would say. But what I will say, my only two concerns, and they're minor concerns, in the draft ordinance that we have here, I do have concerns about the number. It started at 11. I see that it's down to 9. Oh, no, it's 11. It's still 11 with 2 alder people. I still think 11 is too many. And I understand that's literally adding all of one to all of another, but there are some vacancies on both. So do we maybe just kind of let the vacancies go and then just combine the current membership that we have and let that be the number to start with? Because
Yes,
I think
that would
when you start to make it that big, you start to still run into quorum issues with
Agreed. 100%
having.
agree.
So
that
I think
was done.
11 is a lot. But at the same time, I don't want to kick people out of being volunteers. A lot of these people have been here for many, many years. So I think there's maybe some wiggle room with that piece of it. And then the other piece, again, these are very minor things, is just thinking about perhaps some sort of differentiation on the name, because if it stays Parks Commission, I think that when there are vacancies that come available, people who might be interested in some of that might not think that's something they want to join. I think Marion might have something on that.
Marion, then the counselor.
Thank you. So I think it would be important to retain at least the reference to the Environmental Commission and the commission name. We call out the Environmental Commission in the development ordinance specifically for those reviews that I mentioned. And so we would have to make a revision to make sure that it's clear which commission, but it should still relate back to that. So in the current ordinance, it's just the Environmental Commission. The draft ordinance has yet to be adopted, but that would have to be addressed. And then with regard to membership, I think I'm inclined to agree. I'm aware of one person who is not seeking renewal on one of the commissions. Correct. I don't believe that the commissions need 2 alder people. So I think they can do rock, paper, scissors for it. And that would be one member that is also not necessary. So, but I concur completely about the size of the commission. We actually don't have room in that room for many more people at the table.
No, and we don't.
So.
That got missed in translation. I didn't want to increase the amount on Parks Commission. I don't want to increase it. I know we've got plenty of vacancies on environmental, 3, and then there's also 1 coming up on Parks. And we incorporate them for now, and then as attrition, they go away.
Right.
And I'm going to reach out to them too, is if they want to serve another board or commission opposed to that one, that's an option. But if not, they're like, I want to be here, then they're there. I don't want to relieve them of their duties because that's a great volunteer thing they did. I'm sorry.
And my last point was, and I brought this up at Parks, because there were several commission members who were nervous about taking on something technical like the natural resource special exceptions, thinking, I don't have that background or expertise. How am I going to make that decision? And I talked about the value of the staff report that would be provided to them for those types of decisions, and that many of us as, council members, when we first became council members, we weren't experts, and many of us still aren't experts in everything that we look at or vote on. That's why we depend on staff who are our experts to give us the background. And that did seem to kind of assuage some of them, that there would be, some sort of guidance document for them to draw on, and that they wouldn't just be, throwing darts at the wall to see what sticks. So I think if we lean on extra, it might be a little bit extra staff support initially when they're combined, but I think it can work.
Alderman Craig.
I do think, to your point about where, if they were to be combined, that as serving on the Environmental Commission, that I know very little about what happens in the Parks Commission, but I think that would open the door for a lot of collaboration with the citizen volunteers and the other, if there are two alders, which may or may not be the case.
I plan on not, just because if this passes tonight, then that's something I'd work out with the two of you, because, plan commission meetings are 3-4 hours. I have a plan.
Okay. But I think that would really open the door, because I don't know of anyone who has volunteered, they don't want to do it, without being knowledgeable about what they're doing. And that would give, that ability to collaborate when they're, everyone sits at the big table and being able to talk and say, well, your peanut butter is in my chocolate. Well, your chocolate's on my peanut butter. And being able to kind of, cross.
A great commercial. You are on fire tonight. You are just bringing it.
But being able to cross-train and being able to share that level of knowledge, so that way Commissioner Seraphin on the Environmental Commission can kind of share her thoughts about, where we need to protect resources and what wetland delineation looks like, and how, how can we as a city combat invasive species of vegetation, where someone on parks may be very passionate and have a lot of thoughts about pickleball, for example, and share that, so that way, Commissioner Valdez can say, I didn't know that this was an issue or this was a problem. I think that would give a lot of opportunity for, that growth factor with all of the members of the combined commission. Thank you.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Thank you, Mayor. I did appreciate what Alderwoman Day had to say earlier about possibly bringing some of the things from environmental over to planning. I hadn't really thought about that prior, so I think that that's a good thought. To my understanding, in the history of Franklin, for a long time, we did not have an environmental committee at all. Then we developed one. My point is, I guess if with combining the two, and we find out it was a bad idea, it just doesn't work, of course we can amend that and separate back into two different boards and commissions if we find that it's not, the time's not using well and it just isn't working. I mean, this isn't set in stone forever, correct? We could go back to revising that and separating into two again, which I like knowing that's out there, that this isn't an end-to-end all with combining the two. Which is something we could try, see how it works. Maybe we could ask for a council review on how it's going for those of us that aren't on that board or commission, and however many months that the alders feel, whether it be 3 months, 4 months. Mayor, do you have a suggestion?
Yes,
on?
July 1st.
Okay.
Because there's going to be a tour. Because every year there's an annual, if you're on the Parks Commission, you do a tour of all the facilities, you see the wants, the needs, the damages, this, and that way after that, whenever that occurs, would probably be a great time to come back and see how things are going, in my opinion.
Great, thank you. I agree.
Mr. Craig?
I forgot to ask this. If this is adopted this evening, would this affect tomorrow night's Environmental Commission that is scheduled?
No. No, it's got to be published. There's got to be some changes, as the Madam Clerk just said. So no, tomorrow, so on. Mr. City Attorney?
With regard to the 11 members, that takes into account current vacancies. Per code, 7 members on the Parks Commission, 7 members on the Environmental Commission. That's 14.
Madam Director of Administration?
Well, I think we are then setting ourselves up for problems that we are already experiencing, which is quorum issues. So may I recommend 7 members, period, and then see how that goes. But I don't think increasing the amount of volunteers when we have vacant seats and we are combining them to reach quorum, it does not make any sense to me.
I agree with the 7. Okay, Madam Clerk?
Right now, unless someone hasn't told us, on environmental, I have 3 residents and Jason Craig, and then 3 vacant seats. On parks, I have Dave for the alderman, then I have Lance Malicki, Cosner, Stanley Remington, and French. And Shelley, Runty, and Voss are non-voting members. So that's 1, 2, 4, 5. I have 9 right now. If you combine them both together, that would be 9, 2 non-voting members and 2 aldermen.
So to go back to that, Mr. City Attorney?
Which means that you no longer would have an environmental commissioner to go to the Parks Commission to somewhat bring it all together. As a member, because Parks Commission is already, there is no vacancy.
Correct.
Currently, there is no vacancies, correct. 7, I believe, should be the number. We can talk to them a little bit more. There will be 1 aldermanic representative, for sure, and we'll work out that number, but I think 7 is the number, and 7 should stay the number. And we'll get to, how that works. If they're all there now, they're there now until it goes back to 7. I mean, if we're at 9 until it goes back, I don't know how it should be pretty, I don't want to overcomplicate this. Mr. City Attorney, then eventually Alderman Eichman.
Well, if it's 7, then all the Parks Commissioners stay on the committee, and that's, the ordinance gets amended from the draft to remove all that transfer of environmental commissioners, and Environmental Commission just becomes, the code rescinds it. That's it.
Well, I guess, what I don't like is that now we've said, okay, well, thanks for serving, now you're done. And it's not that flow chart-ish, okay? I won't accept a flow chart like that.
So
The council then.
that's why I'm bringing it up.
Right, thank you. So, it should be 7, and I think talking to the membership to see if they wish to stay in that position or wish to join another open border commission should be a priority. Perhaps that can be done quickly. I can also attend tomorrow night's environmental and speak about this as well, but I think 7 is the number, and I understand we need to, in effect, combine the 2, but we're combining it to a name, but not number. Right, Ms. Hex, you got the floor?
Sorry, we've already addressed the question that I had, so.
Okay, Alderman Eichman?
Does the 7 include the 2 non-voting members or 7 plus the 2 non-voting?
7 plus.
Thank you.
Mr. Barber?
Can we just stipulate that new commission would eventually become 7 people?
Yes.
New commission would become 7 people through natural attrition?
That's my goal of it and view of it. Mr. City Attorney?
I'm not aware of a new commission. It's the Parks Commission that's inheriting all of the Environmental Commission work. So there are 7 members existing on Parks. That all stays the same. The draft ordinance provided membership on Parks with the additional 4 existing Environmental Commission members. So,
Not the alder. We have 3, not including the alder.
talking on what's in the draft.
Got it. But I'm just giving you the right number so people aren't freaking out saying, well, we're going to lose 4 people. We're going to lose
So,
3.
what it comes down to is what I said earlier. If you want 7, unless you take a removal process up, which is not on this agenda, and remove some park commission member or members to put an environmental commission current member on parks, Parks Commission membership stays as is, and the Environmental Commission gets dissolved and code just gets repealed, and that's it. And then Parks Commission inherits all of the work that Environmental Commission did. And with regard to the name, I understand the name, et cetera, but Parks Commission is a statutory body. And my thought was, keep it clear, it's the Parks Commission. Per the statute, you can give it additional duties in addition to what it states in the statute, but that keeps it clear. And I know there's a few mentions for referrals such as the NRSC and the UDO, but that's being updated. So instead of saying Environmental Commission, you just change that to Parks as part of the update.
Or potentially plan.
So, Madam Director of Administration, then Alderman Eichman, then Alderwoman Day.
Well, I think the idea was to combine both commissions, not for the parks to necessarily absorb the environmental commission. So I think the idea was to have those members that were still on the environmental commission very much part of the combined commission. And however that works out in terms of numbers, I think if there's a way that we could do that and then have it in there something about attrition, and through that it reduces the number of volunteers. I do see what you're saying though. If all of the environmental volunteers then end up dropping off, we don't have a environmental expert besides Miss X.
Okay, so we'll go Alderwoman Eichman, Alderwoman Day, and then Alderman Barber.
Kelly just basically covered everything I was going to ask and say thank you, Kelly. And your last point that I was thinking as well, if we have experience on the environmental and they want to stay on board, wouldn't that be appreciated by the parks people who are worried they don't have the environmental experience to have somebody stay? I can repeat that slower if needed.
For who?
I said it fast. But that's just, my thought. Why would we want to just not value
Right.
that expertise in that area?
Agreed. You still have the floor.
I'm done. Thank you.
Alderwoman Day, then Alderman Barber.
Could we do 8? So, hear me out. As Ms. X pointed out, on Parks, there is a member who is not intending to renew, and their term is up on April 30th of this year. So while there are 6 current members of Parks as of January 21st, May 1st, there would only be 5. And there are 3 members of Environmental. So if we made it 8, yes, for a few months, there would be an additional person. So I don't know if you have to write it that it's 9 until a term expires, but 8 gets everybody that's currently there to be there, and it's just one extra person than what we were just haggling over, and then it's not having to ask people to resign or find a different committee or whatever. It absorbs everybody that's still there, and the vacancies just go away, is what goes away.
And we're also assuming that everybody wants to stay on board
Correct.
in
And there
addition to
might
that.
be-
So we
and-
might.
And we might
be
get down
back.
anyway once we combine. Some people might say they just don't want to do it. So
Right.
I think we could, if we went with 8, I think we'd be safe. Because it's
Counselor?
going to take a while for it to take effect anyway, because we have to notice it and everything, so it'll be a bit.
Counselor, and then Mr. Barber.
There's 7 current members. I'm hearing 1 will no longer be a member come May Day. Currently, there are 4 members on Environmental Commission. So I add 4 to 6. That's
No, because you're counting the alderman, sir.
Yeah, I'm not counting.
Do not count the
Okay.
alderman.
Okay,
Mr. Sadak,
so that's then 3. So that's 6 plus 3
relieve the general.
is 9,
Right,
not 8.
One's not renewing.
And one's not.
yes, as of April
I'll trust
30th.
What
Alderwoman
one's
Day's
not
math.
renewing?
And there's an individual on Parks that is not renewing.
I already subtracted that.
There's 7 people counting me. There's 6 commission members. I'm the 7th. So
Correct.
6, and then it would go down to 5 on May 1st. And there's 3 volunteer members
from environmental, so that would be
Who's the alderperson on environmental?
Yo,
Jason.
Okay, so he will resign?
I would have to.
What we.
I
one of us
have a
would.
plan for those two, but not tonight. Okay, tonight is simply membership, not including two alders. So the two alders will not be on there. There'll be one alder. This is not rocket science. It really isn't.
It is
So,
if you
no,
have to go into a removal process because.
We don't have to go to a removal process.
Council didn't act on who, and whether it's an elected official or just a citizen member. That happens after the fact, then bring it all back.
Doesn't need, Mr. Barber, and then Kelly, and then me.
My understanding, given the language that is here, it doesn't cover the combination of the two commissions. I think that's all you want to do is combine the two commissions and change the name from planning to planning and environmental.
Or parks.
Commission. Or Parks and Environmental Commission. That's the easiest way around it. And then set a goal saying that the goal will be to get down to 7 members, which includes 1 alderman through natural attrition.
Bingo.
That's all we have to do. We just rewrite it to make it very simple that way and say this is what we need to have done. I don't know if you can rewrite that tonight or we'll do that tomorrow or for next meeting, but that's all we're doing is combining it.
We're gonna have the same arguments next meeting, so let's get done with this tonight.
Then that's what I would change. That's the way I would change it. I'd change it to the language to read combination and eliminate the absorption kind of thinking and change the name to include what the actual combination is. And then say that we would naturally get down to 7 members and or 6 members and an alderman, whatever that works out as.
Mr. City Attorney?
Parks Commission is a statutory created commission. So you don't want to combine it with something else. You just take the something else and give them all those duties. And with regard to attrition, how does that work? Oh, the term expires and there's no one new appointed. What if you have 2 or 3 terms expiring at the same time? And that takes you, if all 3 walk away, 1 below. So you got to pick 1 or 2 out of the 3. How do you do that with
They're
this
mayoral
attrition?
appointments. Right?
Parks that are.
You gotta speak up. If you're gonna speak,
We have
speak
2
up.
parks that are going up on the 30th of April. 2 people are up for renewal on
Hold on.
parks.
Say that again, please.
2 residents are up for renewal on parks on April 30th. So if the mayor does not appoint them, then those people would fall off.
Okay, Kelly, because we gotta move this along.
What if we end up putting a certain amount of members in terms of what we expect would be, let's say, May 1st, and that becomes the effective date for this change, instead of doing the attrition and what have you? And at a later date, if we need to do anything beyond that, then we do that at that time.
Okay, so for those keeping score at home, so we're looking at making this, because right now, I'm at this point, I want to get this done. Do we bring it up to 9 temporarily, and then it goes back to 7? Or is it statutory that it's 7 and period 7? Or we have to, because it's not on the agenda, we got to bring it back and notice it, and then we're going to increase? Or can we simply, because this is going to be we're going to have more of these coming back, just so everybody knows here. I've got another 4 or 5 of these going to be coming back, so. Mr. Pecorelli?
And can we just have it be effective May 1st and do the 7 and just then the way I'm looking at this, unless you want it done like immediately, that is very straightforward.
Right, and also, we can't do it immediately because we still have to notice for it and have a hearing, so it's going to take time regardless.
So if we would make this per the motion and with an effective date of May 1st, and that way also that'll give time to contact and speak with the other members of both commissions. Mr. City Attorney?
Why am I Why am I hearing public hearing?
There should be a public.
This
hearing.
is not zoning
No.
code.
No public hearing.
Yeah, just
Published. Okay, so what would the proper motion be then, Mr. City Attorney? What's listed, or just add effective May 1st? Everything is stated, just add effective May 1st,
No.
2025.
State's 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, it states 11.
A motion to adopt an ordinance as stated on the council action sheet changed to state that effective May 1, the Parks Commission shall consist of seven members,
Including one alderman.
and that the draft ordinance presented to the common council will be amended accordingly.
Okay?
Don't move.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Can I just ask one question?
You've got the floor, Madam Clerk.
Jessica, so then the environmental people will have to come on a council to move to parks, is that correct? I can't just vote.
No, because I said it'll amend the draft ordinance, and it already has environmental commissioner being transferred to the Parks Commission.
So they don't have to be re-sworn in as parks commissioner? They're fine?
I don't know, I'll do a double check.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure.
All right, well, you guys can work that out. G20, motion to approve the public health strategist job description and authorization to fill the position.
So move.
Director. Good evening, Director. Welcome. So right now, before you even sat down, we had a first and a second, but there will be discussion.
This was approved,
What?
this was discussed and approved at personnel.
Okay. So we've got a first and a second. Now there's further discussion. Alderman Eichmann, do you want to start?
Just a quick question, Lauren. It states in here, if the role goes unfilled internally, it will not be filled at this time. So if I'm reading that correctly, the position is going to be filled internally. If we cannot fill this position internally, it will not be posted to the outside.
That is
Right.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
So if you're going to fill Ellen's position, is that what you're planning on doing right now?
Yes, it would be a modification to the public health specialist position to incorporate the evolution of the role. And so then the public health strategist would be open to the public health specialist to apply for. So we would not backfill the vacated position. There would not be any added FTEs.
Okay, because that's my concern, is adding FTEs to our already very, very, very stretched budget. And we all, the breakdowns are about 80% of our budget goes to staff. Our FTE demands, again, this is me soapboxing, DPW, fire, police are big. You've got 8+ full-times back there, and I'm just very concerned about what we commit to. The council action sheet, you said is going to be filled by a grant. Could you kind of explain how that
Sure.
works?
The discrepancy in pay would be covered by grant funding. So we did receive authorization through the grant to cover that discrepancy, which can be from about $3,000 to $5,000, because a position shift like this would be at 5 to 7% increase for internal fill.
And how long is the grant?
It is a reoccurring sustained grant through the Department of Health and Human Services. So we anticipate that we would receive it annually.
So if that grant stopped, what would you do?
Well, luckily, this position is focused on strategy for long-term health department sustainability and efforts. So I would anticipate that given that this role is supporting writing reports and sharing with the community and funders our worth, they would be able to locate another grant to sustain it. We have multiple funding streams, and I'm
Could you say that again? I couldn't hear you shuffling.
We have multiple funding streams through a variety of grant resources, so I'm confident that we would be able to sustain with that.
But if you didn't, again, what would you do?
I'm confident that we would be able to sustain with that. We have multiple reoccurring DHS grants, and based on the trajectory of public health changing and then the landscape and requirement of DHS on local health departments, that would be how we would be able to anticipate the $3,000 in years to come.
If I may.
We got Mr. City Attorney, then
No?
what? I thought you were, oh, good. Kelly?
Just to make a clarification, because I think there's a need to do so. We are not talking about adding a position. We're talking about essentially changing an existing position. We're talking about grant funds for the difference between the positions, not the total position. Thank you.
Correct.
You mentioned, bringing up the salary line to where it should be. Could you explain that a little bit about where the salary line is? You believe it's underfunded, underpaid?
I don't recall that exact language, but we did have HR analyze the position and then drop it into the salary grade. So when an internal transfer of positions would happen and that person would need to take on the new position, it's my understanding from HR that they would either, correct me if I'm wrong, Kelly, make the minimum of that new position salary grade, or it could be 5 to 7.5% increase. So calculating that out based on where our current position is and what the increase could be, it would be, it's in there in your packet, but it's 3,300 something to 5,000 and some change would be the maximum.
Madam Clerk, you said something?
I thought when you moved from one position to another position within the city, you always come in at the lowest grade. The lowest pay of that grade.
Yes, I think and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the point of this is that the pay grade changes because of the responsibilities. So because our policy is, even if you got a promotion, you are capped at 5 to 7.5%. And that's where I think that dollar amount is coming from. And I believe that's what Lauren is saying, but she can confirm that for me.
I got the information directly from Human Resources, so I would anticipate that it's either the lowest salary grade or that this 5 to 7% gets them to the lowest salary grade. We do not anticipate an increase over the $5,000 amount and change indicated in the council action sheet.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I know we got a first and a second. Could there be a roll call on this, please?
Alderman Craig?
Aye.
Alderman Barber?
Aye.
Alderwoman Day?
Aye.
Alderman Assam?
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman?
Aye.
Alderman Peccarelli?
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. Thank you. Motion to approve the Franklin Health Department to accept monetary donations in the amount of $1,000 from the Franklin Lions Club to support health education in the city of Franklin.
So moved.
Second.
First and second by Alderman Hassan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G22, a resolution authorizing the Director of Health and Human Services to accept and execute the 2025.
That's a typo. It's
Uh-oh.
correct in the packet, but incorrect on the top here. So 2024 to 2025.
So again,
Apologies.
I couldn't, say that one more time?
2024 to 2025. is what
Alliance
it should
for
read.
Wisconsin Youth, AWI mini grant. Am I missing something over there too? Good, all right. Is there a motion on this?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
First and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G23, a resolution authorizing the Director of Health and Human Services to accept and execute the, again,
2024 to 2025.
2024 to 2025 Division of Public Health Prevention Grant.
So moved.
Second.
First and second by Alderman Day. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for appearing and waiting and being patient. 2025 Professional Services Agreement between the City of Franklin and Racine County for services to verify a certified soil tester soil and site evaluation. Madam Director of Administration.
This contract is renewed annually since 2010. There's really no significant changes. And we're just asking to continue to renew that contract.
Move to approve.
Second.
First, second, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G25, Geographic Marketing Advantage LLC Agreement for Geographic Information Systems, GIS, Support and Database Maintenance Services for 2025. Madam Director of Administration.
This is pretty much the same sort of situation as the last one. It's an annual contract. We are looking to maintain our GIS department. Todd and Brian are fantastic, and we have essentially and historically matched what the increase has been for employees. So that's what you're seeing here.
Motion to approve.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. G26, in order to increase the publication of liquor license for a new license year from $10 to $15 and increase the publication of liquor license for publication during the license year from $15 to $30. Madam
Motion.
Clerk, anything on that? We got a first and a second. Good. Any further discussion? Good. This is a long time coming. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Why don't we jump ahead? Good point, Alderwoman Eichman. Let's go to licensing. Who's going to take that?
Me.
Very strong. Go ahead, you got it, Alderman Eichman.
License Committee met this evening. We had an appearance for the first applicant that was approved. Then we have 5 operator licenses that were approved. A temporary Class B beer license approved. Class B combo change agent approved. And the temporary entertainment and amusement for our civic celebration event was approved as well.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We've got a first and a second. Roll call, please, on this.
Alderman Peccarelli.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
All right.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. Going on to I as in Ida. 3 vital points. City vouchers with an ending date of January 16, 2025. In the amount of $3,991,057.79. Point 2, payroll dated January 10th, 2025, in the amount of $481,357.28, and payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $268,761.14, plus city matching payments. And point 3, estimated payroll dated January 24th, 2025, in the amount of $587,000, and payments of the various payroll deductions in the amount of $600,000 plus city matching payments.
Move to approve.
We have a first
Second.
and a second by Mr. Barber. This is a roll call.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Peccarelli.
Aye. 6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. Going back to order G27. A motion to enter closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 1985 sub 1 sub E to deliberate the public business process and terms with regard to the Stephen Sherritt claim and Wisconsin statute 1985 sub 1 sub G to confer with legal counsel for the common counsel who is rendering advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to the subject claim and litigation in which it is likely to become involved, and to re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it deems appropriate. Motion to go into closed session.
So moved. Second.
First by Mr. Craig, second by Mr. Barber. Roll call, please.
Alderman Peccarelli.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
All right.
6 ayes, no noes.
Red light unite.
Okay, 9:04 PM, we are back in open session.
Let's do the ballot.
Is there a motion to proceed as in closed session?
Motion to proceed as
Second.
discussed in closed session.
Second.
First and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, that motion carries. G28, a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, sub 1, sub E as in Edward, for market competition and bargaining reasons to deliberate and consider terms relating to potential development and proposal of the investing of public funds and governmental actions in relation thereto, and to effect such development including the terms and provisions of a potential development agreement for the development of property located at 3303 West Oakwood Road, bearing tax key number 951-9994-002, with tax incremental district number 8. Is there a motion going to close?
Motion to go into closed.
Second.
First and seconded. Let's do roll call again.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderman Eichman. Alderman Correll.
Aye.
Alderman Picarelli.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. We are slowly going into closed session. Serena Alpha. It's 9:14 PM. We are back in open session. The motion is a resolution authorizing certain officials to execute a tax incremental district number 8 development agreement between the City of Franklin and Modine Manufacturing Company. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
First and a second. Could we have a roll call, please?
Alderman Picarelli.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Craig.
All right, 6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. Mr. Murray, you're here from Modine. Good evening and welcome, and we look forward to working with you.
Yes.
And welcome.
Thank you.
You.
Excited.
G29, motion to enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 1985, sub 1, sub G, to confer with legal counsel for the common counsel who is rendering advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to the City of Franklin versus BPC Master Developer LLC and Michael Zimmerman. Milwaukee County Circuit Court Case Number 24-CV-7479, litigation and/or possible litigation related to the 2024 shortfall payment under the TID 5 Developers Agreement, and to enter into open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters discussed therein as it deems appropriate. Is there a motion you want to close?
Motion to go into closed.
Second.
First and second, roll call, please.
Alderman Craig.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
Aye.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Picarelli.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, motion carries. You tell me when. It's 9:53 PM. We are back in open session. Is there a motion to proceed as discussed in closed session?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Hassan,
Second.
second by Mr. Barber. All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
Oh, roll call.
I
Craig.
understand.
Alderman Craig.
No.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Day.
No.
Alderman Hassan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Eichman.
Aye.
Alderman Picarelli.
Aye.
4 ayes, 2 noes, no abstentions, motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
First, second by Mr. Picarelli. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi, hi, it's okay. It's okay. I don't know what I'm doing. It's okay.